Underground model.
Hello guys, thank you for tuning in again. Today in focus we're going to have Tru-Color Paints review. Let me give you a short introduction about that. So Tru-Color Paints is a company with some experience in producing different kind of colors and pigments. The railroad modelers know the company better because it did for some time specialized paints for infrastructure and structure in railroad modeling. Relatively recently the company expanded its color range and now is offering to the modeler a whole solution, if you want, covering any aspect related to brush painting and airbrush painting, and also to marketing the paints. I'm going to pass very fast over their range. So they have structure and infrastructure paints, a very large selection. They do have also automotive paints, which we're going to taste right today. They have military paints, they have land forces paints, aero forces paint, and navy, and again railroad. So it's very large selection. I'm not going to cover everything. I let you know this is take 2 of my filming, because the first one was made before I even tried the paints, and I had several things that they weren't right. Anyhow, let's move into the subject. So first of all, the kind of paint. Tru-Color paints are acrylic paints with a solvent base. What that means? So the pigment is in acrylic suspension, and they use for thinning down as a solvent. They use acetone. I did try it on my build. Actually I used it with both acetone and Mr. Leveling Thinner, and I think Mr. Leveling Thinner has the edge. The finish is a little bit better than acetone, but even with acetone the paints are laying down very smooth. So for today's review we're going to try 3 colors that I mainly use in the build on my trailer, which is High Gloss Torch Red TCP 520 and High Gloss School Bus Yellow, which is TCP 534. Now about the bottles and the size, the packing. Well, the packing is very well. I did receive ample lot of sample. None of them was leaking or anything like that. That's my mistake when I was pouring to mixing. This is that plastic that doesn't stick at all, so your paint is not going to stick to the bottle and makes you very difficult to open the caps or none of that. I don't know how you call this plastic, but this plastic is very resistant and it doesn't stick, which is very important. The bottles are very convenient size. You can do with the way I'm spraying, perhaps I can do about 3 models, 2 to 3 models, depending how big they are. The bottles have no agitator, so if you want a good stirring, you can put a steel ball or whatever you use for agitators, or just use Tamiya mixing paddle. Okay, so you're going to see right away my build and my commentaries during the build about those 2 colors, and the clear coating and all the problems I had for sanding and such. No, there were no problems. I actually tested the paints in real environment, so I didn't just pick up a spoon and spray a little bit paint and I say, wow, that's very good, or wow, that's very bad. No, I test them in real conditions. I did apply primer, I did apply the paints on bare metal, I did apply clear coat on top of it to make sure everything is okay and the paint's behaving in the right way. And I have to say I'm very glad I did. The paints are very good in my opinion and very resilient. You're going to see examples. You're going to see them exactly at work. It's not what I'm saying, it's actually what I'm doing and what I can prove, and I can prove with my results. I want to make the disclaimer here. I did get these paints for review on my request because I was curious about these paints. and I was looking for a new range for my auto builds, and seems this one is the right one. Tru-Color Paints is the right one. Later, and you're going to see why I think is the right choice for me, just following this video. So I have no obligation and no contract to say things about the paints. It was just my curiosity, and Tru-Color Paints, the manager, the marketing manager, and the owner of the company, they were kind enough to send me a sample for review. So whatever I say about these paints is based on my experience, and as I said, you're going to see it. You don't have to take my word for it. You just watch the video and make yourself an impression about it. I tried more than these two colors. I tried like 5, I think. I tried also gloss black, but this is not very spectacular. It just behaved like regular gloss black, which is okay. Another one which I tried, and it's the only one that I did not like it, it was the brushable brass, because the metallic flake is too big. But at the end of the day, that's a matter of taste. I see modelers that they love big flake. Well, I'm not such a fond. I'm not falling for a huge flake. I think the scale effect is just horrible. But this is not about the quality of the paint, it's about the looks of the paint, okay? So it's not a critic to the quality, it's just a matter of taste, that you can have it for good or for bad. And besides those two colors from 500 series, I did try one paint from 700 series, and you can see here the result. So what I was saying about the brass, it has the metallic flake too big. Well, this is quite the opposite. Those pearlescent paints from TCP, they just look fantastic once applied. I did a series of tests preparing my next build, my Porsche 959. I decided to try this 755 carbon flash pearl coat pearlescent color. So I did 4 spoons. One I don't have it anymore. I use it for something else, to tasting my decals. But I did spray gloss black, I did spray silver, I did spray gold, and I did spray copper metallic as undercoat. Please note, none of these spoons, they were know-how prepared. Everything was first application. 1 coat of silver, 1 coat of gloss black, 1 coat of metallic copper. Those two are from Rooster Level range. This is Krylon orange, which I use it as undercoat, and then 1 single application of pearlescent, because I wanted to see how the undershine is going to pass through the flake pearlescent effect, and I choose eventually this one. So please follow my Porsche build, which is going to come. I not even start the build, but I am preparing it now. I start publishing the first shots on my blogs, Auto Modeler, and the building is coming very soon. But I wanted to try to make sure whatever color is going to be, so I just fall in love with this color. As I tell you, those two, they have no extra preparation. It's just the pearlescent, no extra preparation, so nothing at all, just bare paint. I think, right, the shine is very nice. And remind you, I never polish the undercoat, or I never apply another clear coat to make it smoother or anything like that. So I'm very happy with that. My choice is going to be this one, but this one I also tested with some 2K resin, just to make sure those two coats are working together fine, and they did. I'm very pleased. On my Porsche build, I'm going to sand, and perhaps I'm going to apply a 2K before even the pearlescent coat, but even like that, it's not a bad finish at all. So I supposed to do the review on those paints in one installment. Well, I realized that they are just too many, and they behave quite different. Those auto paints, they are really different of the pearlescent paints. You're going to see and you're going to understand following the movie that is starting right now. So thank you very much for paying attention, and now please see the review on the Testos trailer. That is going to be our experiment base, and have fun. Okay, to do a taste for our paint range, I choose this Testor car trailer hot metal series. It's a die-cast trailer pre-paint that serves as a display for the completed auto model. But the problem is the cast metal is not all bad. Okay, so the cast metal is quite straight and nice, but the paint, so that I was surprised to see coming from a company that makes a living from selling paint products. I mean, you'll ignore my fingerprints, but you can see the quality of the paint. It's a lot of orange peel and whatever. I mean, it's really, really sloppy quality. You cannot see that much on this side, right? But you can see here. Quite clearly, probably the paint pulled up, and you have runs. So the paint was very sloppy applied, perhaps a single monster coat of paint and off you go. And also here, I mean, it's very, very poorly painted and not even paint properly, right? And look, this edge, half done, half undone, and here, look at that. Seriously, tester? Pre-painting is at no help for me, but to preserve the metal from rusting. That's the only help. Thank you very much, tester. Now, this is a very easy assembly. They recommended that you may make it in an hour. I don't think I need a whole hour for that, because besides assembling the wheels, you have nothing to do. So we have small accessories here. This is the screw lever for the front of the trailer. Well, I'm not going to take it out from the plastic envelope right now, but you have to believe me, it's grossly overscale and is very poorly molded. I mean, it's not even round, it's sort of squarish, whatever. That's supposed to be the rear lights. As you can see, it's just a piece of black sprue that was sprayed with some sort of red over. And I just sprayed those screws are stainless steel screws, because otherwise I'm in big trouble with my Caribbean climate. The plastic parts are as sloppily molded as the paint job is. I mean, marks and everything. Poor quality, really, really poor quality. So, tester, I like your painting, but you should stay and do what you know to do properly. Okay. Look at that. So there is no piece that is properly done. I'm sorry. This is quite some decent applied aluminum, let's say so. And those pad printed tires, I guess they are. The white insert here is not as straight as you might expect, but I'm not sure I'm going to get any better job than that, so I better leave it like that than to make more damage. The only thing I'm going to do, I'm going to scuff a little bit. Yeah, look at the detail at the back of the tire. There's nothing there. Well, the good thing about it is this thing is not expensive, okay? So, I don't know, I think I paid like $9. So at the end of the day, it works, but you get what you paid for. On the other hand, being made of metal, that's going perhaps to last forever, even in my Caribbean climate. And honest to be now, is not going to make a central piece. I'm just going to have displayed my auto models. You have those loading ramps, and again, as you can see, those are molded in plastic, which is semi-gloss or whatever. This is sort of high gloss black, so they just don't match. I don't know, it's not, of course, it's not a big importance. It's not something that is very easy to notice, but it's not the way I want it. So those two, they're going to be repainted. I'm going to do perhaps some branding on those fenders, and yeah, I'm going to redo the whole of this paint job, which is not satisfactory and is not up to my standards by any means. Okay, so I take this opportunity to try my new range of paints, and I was thinking if I should strip the paint or not. I'm going to try and eliminate those improperly finished surfaces by sanding, and then I'm going to scuff a little bit the surface, and I'm going to use a lacquer primer to cover it up, and then I'm going to use the main color for the chassis on this trailer for the ramp, and I'm going to try and make the branding also using one of the TCP paints. I have not decided yet which one. So I'm going to start working on this tester's trailer. I'm going to use some 1200 grit wet or dried 3M sandpaper and some water. So let's get going. First, the most important spot I see here, which I don't know if it's a cast problem or a paint problem, but doesn't look good at all. So try to flatten. Okay, so I did sand it roughly, the surface, with 1200 grit sandpaper. I'm removing the dust. You can see now how bad the orange peel it was. And then I'm going to move to sanding with Tamiya sanding sponge, 2000 grit. As I said, I don't want to strip to bare metal. I just want to prepare a paintable surface. So the following primer, lacquer-based primer to have a base to grip on. So I'm going to pretty much repeat the same operation with Tamiya 2000 grit. Which should give me a smoother surface, but not glossy smooth that the paint won't catch. And anyhow, after priming, we're going to see if there are still spots that need to be addressed with, again, maybe 2000 or 3000 grit. You can see by the way the sandpaper worked on the surface, but that the paint was not straightly applied, or there are casting problems there. But for what I can see right now, it seems that the paint was not good anyhow. Let's go further. So we're starting the painting process right now. Don't forget, safety first. I'm spraying on my booth with the fan on, and I also use my mask because we're spraying lacquer-based primer, which is quite dangerous for the health and conditions of long time exposure. Now I do first a mist coat, and then I try to block the entire surface with a uniform coat, trying to minimize the overspray, being careful to reach all nook and crannies, and following this whole process all around. I like very much this Mr. Leveling Thinner 1500. So you see I try to keep it wet, although it's drying very fast. This first coat is drying on touch almost. I still try to overlap as well as I can, so no overspray, so you get rid of that gritty aspect of the paint or unequal layering. And here I'm doing the leaf springs, same way, first a light coat, trying to cover most of the part, and then, as I said, because it's drying almost on touch, I come with a second more solid coat, giving a uniform appearance to the entire assembly, which is going to be painted later on, either by airbrush, either by brush. This primer has a very nice satin finish when correctly applied, and very good self-leveling properties. So we are in no rush, just checking if the layering is uniform. These are the loading ramps. Again, light coat first, keep it on the move, don't allow the primer to pool, but try to keep it wet. So mist coat followed by more solid coat. Now I'm going across because I want a good blocking. This is a quite large surface, and now I'm going along. That's the last application, so you can see how well is covering now with the third pass, and there you go, very smooth, nice surface. On the other side, all the same. So airbrushing is not all that complicated if you are focusing on the correct principles of applying paint. Again, going crosswise, this diamond pattern has to be well covered and sprayed from different angles. Now I'm doing the sides of the ramps and taking care of all the nook and crannies. You come back anytime you feel necessary. And this is a locking device. When the car is installed onto the trailer, I'm covering everything with primer. I hate to leave behind, although this part is not going to be visible at all, I hate to leave behind unpainted surfaces. You might have very bad surprises sometimes. You never know precisely if a part is going to be seen or not. Finishing here, top of the same part. Now I've got a good feeling of the primer, so I go more open, trying to minimize the number of passes. So now the underside of the trailer is dry to the touch, so I can turn it without damaging the paint underneath, and I'm starting the whole process again on the surface. It's obvious why I choose this order, because if I have any damage underneath, that's okay. It's not visible, and it's also very easy to correct. So we are on the top surface now of the trailer and applying the same treatment, a misty coat first, and carry on covering very well surfaces. So this is as easy as it gets. Just keep your hand moving and keep the paint flowing. I cannot give you better advice than that. Well, perhaps many of you don't even need this kind of advice, but I'm talking especially with a beginner now. And it's best if you have a one of those airbrushes with throttle stop, so you can taste your airbrush flow and put a stop wherever you find you get the most uniform spraying pattern, and just throttle it up. I prefer without a stop when I do this kind of job, because they are smaller and larger surfaces, and I have a tendency, of course, to apply a less wide spraying fan on tighter surfaces and wider one, a heavier one if you want on wider surfaces, with the same purpose, to minimize the number of overlapping passes, and in this way to minimize the overspray. On spraying the primer or the main coat, the main enemy is the overspray, so the gritty surfaces. Checking now how well my primer went here. I must say I was quite pleased with the result. As you can see, it's covering very well, although I sprayed straight over black. The color is very uniform and only one single session. So there you go, look how smooth and nice the finish is. Okay guys, I apply first coat of primer on this, and the primer had revealed some obvious cast issues, but most important, most visible is this seam line here, along here. Right, there are a few other marks, but those are too difficult to remove, and I'm going to leave them there. Beside those, they're going to be covered by the wheels, so not a big problem. The main problem I see is it's here, and as I showed you here. So I'm going to use a metallic file to try and fix those poorly cast details. Okay, remove most of the seam lines. You can see here the exposed metal here was particularly bad, and in the neck triangle. And now I'm going to use the emery board, and perhaps followed by nail buffer to smooth out the rough marks of the metallic file. Much better now. Yeah, it's getting smooth and shiny. And there you go. And now I'm going to touch it a bit with the rough nail buffer. One of the colors I chose to test on this model was TCP 010 Black. The producer says on his prospect that those paints are ready to airbrush, but I find them a little bit too thick, so I prefer to add some Mr. Leveling Thinner. They are solvent-based acrylics, so they do very well in mixture with strong solvents. I think the manufacturer recommended solvent is xylene-based, but I do use lacquer thinner or Mr. Leveling Thinner. Me and Mr. Leveling Thinner, we are very good friends. I hate applying too heavy coats of paint, to be honest, so let's start to do our painting now. Those they're going to be painted black first. Very nice covering and very nice finish to those paints. They do look glossy now because it's a wet coat, but when they dry they are more sort of semi-gloss finish, which is very good for applying clear coats or a sub-segment coat. But the coverage is very good, so that's the main purpose. And because it's solvent based, it bites very well into the underlaying coat. In this case also solvent based, so the match between the primer and the main coat is as good as can be. Doing the same on the other loading ramp. Here I try to emulate a sort of rubberized coating, so this black is going to be finished by a wash, so I'm not quite very interested in very gloss finish, but nonetheless the paint, it does a very good job. You can see it how nice is layering, so no particular problem whatsoever, covering very well, a few passes. I like the paints that can be sprayed in one go. It saves you a lot of work. It was quite risky here because this corrugated surface or diamond pattern surface would be very difficult to sand if something go wrong, so we need to strip it afterwards, but it was not the case. Testing one more time the way that the paint covered, because some paints when they dry they have tendency to shrink, so then you would have either bald spots, either unequal spots. Here I start painting the red, which is the main color of the body or of the frame of the trailer if you want. Doesn't really having a body. Anyhow, it's a very interesting color. It is not exactly to my taste, I have to confess. I was expecting by the name of torch red a more bright red, and this is sort of orangey. It's a very interesting color nonetheless. For different kind of auto vehicle is going to be a very, very nice and interesting car. I would like to see a tractor like that. I mean a old classic 18-wheeler tractor. Very nice it would be. Again, spraying in a narrow pattern and trying to cover everything as well as I can in one single session, which is perfectly possible given the qualities of TCP paint, so no problem encountered here. Spraying the underside edges. As I tell you, I hate to leave unpainted spots because you might have nasty surprises when display your model. So this is it. You see, it's not perfect, but it's very, very close to a very good covering surface. Again, it's looking glossy when wet, but when dry it's not all that glossy, but it's a good, very good coat nonetheless. Okay, and now it's time to apply the yellow. This is going to serve me as an undercoat for the positive masks, which I'm going to apply afterwards. Now, as many of you already know, yellow is one of the most difficult to apply colors, and is a good test for any color range to try their lighter colors, but especially orange, yellow and red. So if a paint range has a very good yellow and a very good red, you can be quite sure is a good paint range. So again, it's covering without problems. I'm applying here thin coats of paint because I don't want to build too much paint. As you noticed already, we have a primer coat, we have an undercoat for the masks, and we're going to have the main coat after that, followed of course by a clear coat. So there is already a few coats piling up, but yes, I'm happy with the way those paints are spraying. Now over black is a little bit more difficult to achieve a uniform block, but not as bad as the other color. I remember once when I was doing my build on Camaro Motion from AMT, when I paint the engine, I used some craft acrylic, which was tremendously bad. I think I had to spray like 5 to 7 coats of red to desired opacity I wanted for that paint. The result was good, but was very, very time consuming and frustrating because you have to wait for successive coats to dry up first. So it was quite a bad and interesting experience. That's why I'm saying you can test the quality of a paint range by the light colors, and especially yellow and red. Okay guys, so I did mask and spray some yellow. This yellow is going to be base for my positive masking because I want to add my channel markings on the fenders, and also I'm going to make red and yellow edges. The main color of the trailer is going to be eventually the same torch red we have here. Now, while spraying this yellow, which sprays very nicely by the way, but my airbrush starts sputtering, so I don't know if you can see it right there. Yeah, you can see it. So I have those splatters of paint, they're going to disappear under the second coat if I apply it like that. But the problem is it's going to be raised, and the new paint is going to bulge on top of the old one, so you're never going to get a perfect surface. So I'm going to sand just a little bit to try to level these imperfections here. And well, although it's never good when these kind of things happen, it's good for our purpose because we can try now and see how well those paints are answering to sanding. So in this purpose I'm going to use some Tamiya 1000 grit sponge, but this sponge was already used, so it's a softened 1000 grit. Anyhow, let's see how we get here. So as you can see, it sands very nicely for what I can tell right now. So although it's an acrylic paint, acrylic suspension paint, it does behave like an enamel or like a lacquer during sanding, which is good. The main criticism for the acrylic paints, if you want, is that they are not easy to sand. They have a tendency to peel off or to gauge and not to sand smoothly. Well, it looks like these paints are inheriting the best of both worlds, and they are very tough. You can see we're going to do a scratch test later, but for now, see, no jagged edges. So I really want to remove that big blot there. I'm not very worried if I pass through the primer. I also want to make the edges of those blots smooth. Actually, it seems like it's not entirely my fault there, or my airbrush fault at that matter, but it looks like, yes, there is a gauge, actually a molding imperfection into the metal that made the paint to accumulate, but it's good I find it out. So now the whole surface is flatter than used to be, and the new application should be nicer. So as you can see, because I sprayed over black, the yellow still has some transparency to it, so the second application, it's a must. So this problem here doesn't bother me all that much. I'm just going to spray it first, let it a little bit dry, and I'm going to come with the second coat right after it. So I'm going to finish this sanding now. Okay guys, I did spray the second coat of yellow, so I cover my previous mistakes. I did another one, a Gabriel trademark splatter, but I removed it with light sanding. Sorry, here it is. It's not too much to be seen. It's still visible, but it's going to be covered over the red coat that is going to come next. Because I'm going to use this display with various models, I'm going to watermark it if you want. So I did use my plotter, my Cameo, and I cut those positive masks. It's very difficult to see them, but you're going to understand right now what is going on here. I do have, by the way, a demo on my channel about those masks, so if you have the time and the curiosity to see it, you can find it on my channel. Now I'm going to remove those extra material. Then I'm going to use Tamiya tape as a transfer tape, because I need those letters to come in the same position onto the model. So I'm just going to cut a piece of tape. I do align my letters to the base of the tape, so I have an idea of their alignment. So now the masks are all glued on the tape, and I'm going to attach them on the fender. I try to put them in the central position, because once attached they're going to be very difficult to reposition. Perhaps I need to cut new masks if something goes wrong. There we go, we have all the letters there. Now we have to burnish the edges. So I'm going to use a toothpick for that. Make sure that the edges are very well pressed against the model so the paint doesn't seep underneath. Okay, and we're going to proceed with the other side in the same manner. Then we're going to move to painting proper. But before that, I promise you we're going to do a scratch test to see how resilient this paint is. And now is the good moment to do it, because it's before the next painting session. So if something goes wrong, I have the opportunity to recover. So if you well remember, this corner here was polished to the metal, right? I did sand as preparation through the first coat of yellow, through the original silver paint through the original black paint and all the way down to the metal. So I was telling you that I'm going to try a scratch test, a rub test on it. So see, I am pressing as hard as I can and the paint is not coming off, it's not peeling off, there's nothing wrong in that spot. I bet you if they were just regular acrylics, that edge would have been exposed by now. I'm telling you from my experience. That's the good part of it. The bad part of it is, although this yellow is listed as high gloss yellow, well, in my books this shine is not a high gloss, by no means. It is more, if you want, as a semi-gloss or low shine gloss, but by no means high gloss. That's not a big problem. We're going to apply, after all, a gloss coat, polyurethane gloss coat on top of it. So it's not a big problem. I even might be better that way because this semi-gloss surface perhaps offer better adhesion to the urethane coat, but it's not what they say on the bottle. It is not high gloss, so you should not expect ultra gloss yellow. And I noticed this on their red 2 that also is listed as ultra gloss, ultra bright red. Well, it has shine to it, but as you can see, the light is not reflecting, it's a dim reflection. Okay, so that is semi-gloss, guys. That is not high gloss. Now the black, which is not listed as high gloss, is listed as just regular black, and they say in their prospect that indeed the colors that they are not specifically mentioned, they are glossy. So, but this black, it looks to me much glossier than the yellow, which is listed as high gloss yellow. Okay, so yeah, I don't know what to make out of this one. You see the red here that was applied on a thick wet coat, so it's still not as glossy as we'd expect. But this is just a quirk of denomination, because I think this gloss coat, low shine gloss coat, is actually a better support for urethane. We're going to see that just after I'm going to spray over the red. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do this side also off camera. Then I'm going to prepare my spray booth, and we're going to spray red color, the same color here, the torch red, on top of it. And then I'm going to come back to my working desk, and I'm going to remove the mask. Now I'm spraying the ramp with the same red. You see me what I'm doing, but look how good the coverage is. So even hard to apply orangey or red color is getting very, very nice in one single coat. Okay, I'm going to come for the second one just to make sure I have a good coverage. I don't want to have surprises, but yes, I can say I'm quite surprised by the quality of those paints. Not that I was expecting something bad, but you know, first use, so getting consistent results. I get more daring here, and I go for a single coat just to push paint to its limits. You see how wide I'm spraying now, and trying to get everything done in one single pass. And there we are. The result is not bad at all. Well, when you do this kind of experiment, you're pushing your luck, but it's worth it because you know what to expect on the further uses of the paint. So I'm quite glad I did it. You can see already how shiny and uniform the paint is, which is the main objective. I try to load it even more. So here I'm doing basically a run test to see how much I can spray before the paint starts running without damaging the paint. Of course, that's the tipping point. If you want a good coverage, you have to apply as wet coat as you can, but without provoking runs on your paint job, which is going to ruin the paint. So it's very good to taste and know where that tipping point, as I call it, is, and then you're going to have good consistent results, which I'm pretty much getting here. Now, after I did my testing, if you want, on the small parts that they are easy to strip or to fix if something goes bad, we start working on the main frame of the trailer. And here I'm again doing cross motion for better coverage. I have the grain of the paint on both directions, which eliminates visible stray. Now again, with the experience I gain on small parts, I try to do a full blocker coat. So I do my misty base first, and now I'm going to a wide spraying pattern and try to cover everything. I'm getting fast over it to prevent runs and overloading the painted surface. Again, I start with the bottom of the trailer just in case something goes bad, and I'm following those small lines, edges carefully, trying not to forget anything. The shape of this trailer is not complicated, but it has plenty hiding spots if you want that you can overlook, and then you have surprise to discover that you forgot something. Is never very funny because you have to restart the whole process. So preparing your paint with airbrushing, waiting to dry, cleaning your airbrush, and so on. I don't know how damaging can be those paints, TCP paints, if you forget them and let them dry inside the airbrush, but I can tell you that they have a very good adherence. So you have seen my mixing recipients. Well, the yellow dried in one of those, and that was almost impossible to remove it. On my ultrasound cleaner, I use the strongest solvents I have, so the bottom still has a nice yellow ring after several cleaning sessions. So I can tell you that can be very damaging if you forget the airbrush. So that is as a note of caution, don't forget your TCP paints inside your airbrush. Clean it right away. If you have to go somewhere or something happened, you just spray some solvent and make sure you don't have a mass of dried paint next time. Now, when spraying over the masks, you must be careful to spray as perpendicular if you can on the mask design, because if you spray from one angle, you build too much paint on the edges, and this is going to be then, it is going to stand proud when you remove the masks, and this is never very helpful. To get a nice paint job using masking, you have to try and cover everything with a good one coat, because
If it dries too long, or if you apply the second coat, you might have the surprise that the underneath paint was dried out over the entire masking, including the hollow spots, and you're going to pull the whole paint job out. So that is never a happy event. It turns you back with few steps, because then you have to sand down everything, you have to reapply the undercoat. Now if you have a little bit of jagged edges, that's not a big issue, because you can sand them smoothly, and then when apply the clear coat, first clear coat, you insist on those edges and then sand again, and you might repeat the process as many times as you want until your edges blend completely on the paint job. But usually, based on my experience, if you do correctly, you don't need more than 2 coats. So one is just to make sure everything is nice and smooth, and the second one to get your last finish, if you want, of the model that can be sanded down, polished, or whatever you might need to do.
Okay guys, you see me spraying the red. Now, well, as the yellow, I don't find this red as being all that glossy. It is glossy, you can see the shine, definitely, but not all that glossy. I did apply, as you have seen, a single thick coat because I need to remove those masks and I need the edges to be very sharp, especially for the lettering. So I'm going to start from this side. You see how clean the edges are, so much better than the animals. Whoever have seen my movie on my MiG-15, when I'm doing the walk lines, you're going to see that I'm struggling there for a straight edge. Now obviously those spots here, because the tape was not properly sitting down, I should have been more careful there. But wherever the masking tape was properly sitting, the edge is breaking very nicely, very straight, no jagged edge at all. Okay, let us remove the other side again. So no big resistance from the paint, no elasticity, just the right way. So I guess this breed of paint is inheriting the best characteristics from both enamel and acrylics. Really worth to look into. I'm going to have the second series for armor and aircraft colors paints, so we're going to see even better. Now the most difficult part is to remove those letters without making a mess, so I'll try to lift as carefully as I can, corner, and then pinch it out, trying to stab the mask and force it to lift, because I don't want to damage the corner or the edge. Okay, that's what I was intended to do. Again, very clean edges, much better than my old enamels. So at least for this purpose, I think TCP paints are better than enamels or lacquers. There you go, that's the most delicate part of the operation. So you need to be patient and you need a safe hand. Well, accident happens, and it did happen many times, but with some practice it's getting to be quite routine. Just you need a good pair of tweezers and a good sharp 11 blade. There we go. Now when you stop the mask, don't press too hard because you're going to scratch the paint underneath. You see I put some marks in it here, but that is going to be covered with clear and hopefully they will disappear, or they are so small that it's not going to be a big issue. Now what usually happens with enamel and lacquers, when you have small spaces like that, like in between the braces of this AM, the superficial tension of drying paint is bigger than the adhesion to the base coat, and then it has a tendency to lift together and the paint that lays between the legs, and then you have a whole problem on your hands. It happened to me also several times, especially with enamels. So enamels, if they are too fresh, they make you a jagged edge. If they are too dry, you're going to have a peeling off. So now removing the first masks. There we go, nice and clear. Yes. Well, I'm quite happy with the way I get this, except small infiltration of paint here and this jagged edge that of course it came from my lack of attention on laying the mask. Everything seems to be okay. I'm quite pleased, and I guess this stain at least, and maybe this one, can be fixed out with a little bit sanding because the red is on top of yellow. So if I can manage to scratch away with a fine sanding sponge the red only, perhaps I'm going to be able to restore that line. If not, I need a touch with the paintbrush before applying the clear coat. I need to see what I'm doing from this side because I don't want to touch that inside of there. So there you go, guys. I have to say that this is a decent job. I'm not pretty much concerned with what is underneath because those utilitarian trailers are not, in normal life, they are not sprayed with pretty much attention. So this is more than a decent paint job, I think. Two small corrections to be added there. After I'm going to spray everything with a clear gloss, I'm going to wash those black areas with a semi-gloss homemade wash, so to make this thread to pop out more and to replicate a semi-gloss or in the matte side rubberized coat. This is for now, guys. I'm going to be back after I sand lightly the surface as preparation for the clear coat, for the gloss coat, and after I'm going to fix those small problems here if possible. If not, it's still good like that. Alright guys, so what we are about to do right now, I did wet sanded very lightly the surfaces that they are to be sprayed with clear coat. And as you can see here, where I had the small problem with the Tamiya tape, it's almost done, so I consider it is good enough. As I said before, this is a utilitarian kind of build, so it shouldn't be very perfect if you want in its finishing. Normally I would not even do the clear coat, but I consider it good to do it for two reasons. First of all, I want to see how the my regular urethane is going to stick on this paint, on Tru-Color Paint, and second because this is going to be used as a display base and it's going to see a lot of handling and exposure to the elements, to the dust and anything. I want to give it a extra protection if you want. Right now I'm going to paint with silver those axles where the loading strips are attached. So I'm going to use some Tamiya X32 titanium. This is a random choice. I cannot use my regular silver from testers because it's solvent based and it's going to etch through this paint. I tried already, so it doesn't work. Why I do painting of this axle before the clear coat? Because this acrylic Tamiya, it's weak paint. It doesn't stand to well abrasion and I wanted to clear coat it because by lifting and lowering the gauge, the loading gauge, this paint is going to see some abrasion. Well, that's the reason why me and Tamiya Metallics are not good friends. They have very poor coverage, especially over finished paint. But yeah, eventually I'm going to manage a more or less uniform paint. It's not a big deal, just it's not as good as lacquer paints or enamel paints. Not the perfect paint job, but it's okay. For the purpose, it's just what I need here. I need a paint that dries fast before spraying my clear coat, and there you go. Probably with the use, these axles, these rods, they're going to be eventually worn to the bare metal, so then we're going to have natural metal. I could do it right now and cover it with clear coat, but I prefer to do the painting and then let the natural worn to show for a more realistic appearance. And a secondary effect that I hope for is that the clear coat is going to bring a little bit this red to life. It's a pale red. I don't know exactly how to say it. It's not as eye-burning as you would expect for a name like Torch Red. So let's hope it's going to have more kick once clear coat applied. So let's see what is going to be further.
Okay, and here I'm clear coating my model. I'm using my solvent-based polyurethane clear coat gloss. As you can see, it's an amber color inside the cup. So yes, once applied, it has a very light amber tint to it, but that's good. You can get very interesting effects with it. So I tried and use it on aluminum airframe, so it gives that older look on the aluminum finish, which is very nice. Also, it has filter qualities and it blends the color when you have very contrasty colors. And also I tried over chrome on my Mac DM600 build and gives a very nice effect of heated iron. Here basically I use it to correct the hue of the red. As I was telling you earlier, I was not all that happy with the rather faded hue of this flame red. So you can see it now as the color is get more vivid and preserving the yellow very well. Secondary effect of this coat is that it gives you more depth to the final product, but be careful with it if you decide to use it. It's finicky, it's very difficult to find a good ratio for a smooth application. And the second and the third coat, you have to know very well the flushing time, because if applied too late you get a gritty surface. if you apply too early, you have the risk to have that pergament paper surface. So yeah, it's quite difficult to work with. I will definitely not recommend to beginner. 2K is a much better option for you if you are a beginner. But as I said, for the one that wants to explore more or to try more or to achieve different effects, is best to give it a try. Is not working over all the colors, so it has to be a yellow or brown or amber or red related orange color to get that example. I mean, over blue the result is going to be catastrophic. Over black I tried and it gives it a very nice lightning tone to the black, so it's making more of a gray effect. Very nice. You even can simulate color very close to the carbon fiber color. That one with amber tones over red, over orange, over yellow does very well. It doesn't do at all good over white, and it does pretty well over metallic colors.
Okay guys, so what do I have now for you is that this is basically finished painted. So I sprayed eventually the second coat of gloss on it. You can see it, decent job. I'm not going to do any other thing. I tried two different clear coats, both of them solvent based, but one I diluted with lacquer thinner and the other one with MLT. So at the bottom I used the my regular urethane, and at the top I did use the Alclad clear coat. The results are very similar. In both cases TCP paint takes very well the final gloss, so I'm happy the way it looks. If somebody reaches at this point and wants to polish it more, yes, it's free to do it. I would do it myself if it would be a model car, but in this case it's actually more than needed. The next step with this one is going to apply some wash, some dark gray wash here to expose more this thread, and also to give a little bit of a worn look, a very little bit of a worn look. And I decided eventually to paint those wheel wells in dark, in black, in matte black. Try to cover those molding issues. If it be plastic, more easy to fix, but like it's metal, I'm just going to leave it this way, and I'm going to brush paint some black on top of it. We're going to get back to it soon. But the change that I never tell you is going to happen is those loading gates or ramps, whatever you call them. In the first instance I neglect them, I just spray them over and that was it. But then I realized that actually when you don't have a long vehicle, when you have a short vehicle, and you have them in traveling position, the back of the loading ramps is going to be very visible, and that gives me a lot of space to develop the graphic schema on this vehicle. So I did modify it. I had to strip the paint and slightly sand it and then reapply yellow, and then I put my masks and I spray with red. So this one is still not well dry, so I'm going to start removing the masks on this gate and this ramp. I'm going to do it the same way as I did it before, stabbing through the mask and lift it up, and then with some pincers that I don't know where they are right now. Hello. Ooh. Okay, find some. We just lift the carefully the mask. Again, I'm impressed the way this TCP paint leaves clear edges for masking, and it dries fast. I sprayed minutes ago. I just cleaned my airbrush, and there I am. So as you can see, I can touch it without damaging the surface. Okay, it's not ready yet for rough handling, but because it's solvent based, because it's acetone based, the drying time is very fast, and in less than 1 hour I'll be able to spray the clear coat. I want to spray some clear coat on top of it too. So what you see here are some European speed limits. So we are watching it this way. Okay, so there's a 90 and there's a 80 top of it. And voila, the first gate is ready to be clear coated. Move to the second one. For some reason this one is glossier than the other one. It could be the I think I sprayed more paint on this one, but that is not going to make a real difference. Okay, so that's my channel logo. That's the cleanest ever mask to get. So I'm very happy. TCP gained a customer here because I'm using a lot masks. So I'm not very happy with the gloss on those paints, but I'm very glad with the way that the paint allow me to apply masks. So when you have two-tone interior or things like that, definitely TCP is a good choice. And also, by the way it's taking the clear coat, you should consider it for external paint job too. I think I'm being too picky here myself. I would prefer a glossier main coat, but that is not necessarily everybody's preference, because as I said, this paint is taking very well clear coat, so no issue here. The only problem is, and I think it's me, not necessarily the paint, is that I don't like to charge too much the surface of the model. So I really loathe it to apply coat after coat of paint until I reach 2 millimeters of paint. I like it well sprayed, a solid coat of course, but I don't like it too thick, especially when you deal with mask. If you have it too thick, then you're going to have a step between them. It's just going to be very difficult to level it. So from this perspective, TCP paint is very good because it gives you a very good coverage. That is one hand spray, that's it. That was a 2-minute spray job that dries very fast. I repeat myself, but I want my message to get very good through. So I sprayed those things in 2 minutes. I did clean my airbrush. I came straight here. I started my camera and I started removing the masks. I did everything, so I'm shooting now for 10 minutes. I did everything in between 15 minutes, and I think this is a decent job. Okay guys, so the loading ramps, they were painted and clear coated. So one of the few last things I need to do is to paint those wheel wells with black, trying to disguise those casting marks. It's not easy to fix them in cast iron. Well, it doesn't bother me too much. As I said, that is not a central exhibition piece, it's just a display. So I'm going to do some masking because I want to make sure I have a clean edge, and I'm going to use Tamiya tape on that purpose. Okay, so the masking is done. Now I'm going to go ahead and paint the wheel wells. I'm going to use some dark gray or rubber gray acrylic paint. Let's get into it. Okay, that's just craft acrylic, nothing special about it. This is my own mix of tire gray if you want. And yeah, I'm just going to use plain water for our purpose. Should be good enough. It's a brand new brush, so you might need some trimming before getting it to work properly. Yeah, perhaps a second application will be needed, because when it dries, the acrylic paint has a tendency to shrink, and if the adherence is not all that good, then you're going to have some exposed or bald spots. It does happen, but that's it. Again, nothing to worry me at all. Okay, a second coat will follow, but until then I'm going to make a quick acrylic wash, and I'm going to deal with those rubberized surfaces that they are too shiny, as you can see. So for that purpose I'm going to use the same craft paint that I showed you earlier. That I'm going to mix it with some pledge and some water. You're going to ask me why I put pledge if I want it not glossy. Well, I'm going to put just a little bit pledge to improve the flowing of the mix. Let's see what we get. Okay, I'm going to use this mixing cup, so let's say like 5 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drops. 2 drops of pledge, 2, and then just we're going to add some water, not too much because the mix it's already quite thin. Yeah, so it's like just like a airbrush paint consistency. Yeah, perhaps you see the difference now between the side I applied the wash and the other side. It's very easy to apply, quick drying, and very easy to remove if something goes wrong. Okay, we're going to do the same thing here. Okay, so as simple as that. Well, those are not dry yet, so I'm going to wait for wheel wells to dry, and then I'm going to apply the second coat, but you get the idea by now. So meanwhile I finish applying wash on all those parts, as you can see here. I'm going to remove those masks. To see how our wheel wells look after painting. The paint is not completely dry, and it could be that I am going to need a couple of touch-ups, but the main painting is done. We can remove the masks. There we you, quite neat. The reason I put masking here is because I didn't want a conflict on this edge. That would be very difficult to solve conflict between red and black. So I prefer to give it this look. So from lateral, this will look red, but from underneath it's going to look black. Okay guys, so this is the completed model. Now there are a few things that can be made better, especially this hinge here that is a little bit in one side. The main objective of this build was to test the Tru-Color Paints colors. I did use particularly for this build these three colors, okay? So TCP Black 010, TCP 520 High Gloss Torch Red, and TCP 534 High Gloss School Bus Yellow. Although they are listed at high gloss, the result is what I would call a satin or a semi-gloss finish. Now, it's quite common nowadays that the company offer what they call it a complete solution or a dual stage paint. So I think this fits in that category. TCP offers gloss medium, so if you want to mix it to make it glossier, it's okay. But based on my experience, a satin coat, a semi-gloss coat is much better to retain the tack coat when you apply gloss. So you can see it here. Okay, so this gloss is nearly impeccable, right? And I tried my regular polyurethane, and I did try the clear coat from Alclad. Both of them, they work very well. So this is not polished, nothing, it's just the gloss as it came out from direct airbrushing. Again, no need for too much effort on this kit, because what I want to mention as a good quality, as excellent qualities of this paint is that they are very easy to sand once dry, which is a huge advantage. It saves you a lot of time on preparing the body for a neat finish. A wet 2000 grit sponge will do the trick. You just need to pass it superficially and you're going to get a very smooth surface, very nice. And secondly, not all TCP paints are a lack of gloss. Working on another model, my Mack truck DM600, I've been using this TCP 755 carbon flash pearl coat, which I intend to use it on a future build, so I couldn't wait any longer, and I decided to give it a try on a less important part. In case of a failure, I can redo it very easy. So, what to get here? Look at that. Very nice shiny coat. It has to be said that those parts, they've seen no special preparation. It was just the primer applied, then a black coat for this one. On this one I had the black coat applied and then a coat of silver. You still can see the remnants of the silver underneath, and eventually the pearl coat. And actually I get it glossier than I wanted. It's going to be odd, but I'm going to leave it that way, but it still is going to look odd for a truck to have a fifth wheel that resembles carbon fiber or something. What is very pleasant to the eye is that there is, I'm not explaining to you what the pearl coat means now, but the flake inside this paint is very fine, very nice, and I'm not sure if camera does any justice, but it looks spectacular, and I have no reserves in using it on my future Porsche 959, which you're going to see on my channel as well. I'm not even started yet, but I know very sure the kit I'm going to build, and I know very sure the paint I'm going to use, because this experiment gave me the answer I was looking for. So as said, the result was above my expectations, to be honest, and this is not polished, is not clear coated, is nothing. Imagine how it's going to look with a 3000 grit sanding, or not even that. I guess it doesn't need any of that. You just need a nice clear coat. So I hope, guys, my small demonstration was okay. It's up to you. If you want to give a try to those paints, please have in mind they are solvent based. If you want a good resilient paint, easy to sand, easy to work with, and with the easy to clean airbrush, I'm going to do more experience. This is only the first part, and I'm going to use their flat paints or military paints as well on my future builds. So please stay tuned with my and follow up my TCP adventure for a while, at least for next 2-3 builds. I'm going to keep using them, so perhaps I'm going to when I know more, I'm going to let you know more about that paint range. Thank you very much. I'm signing out now.